Welcome to the Science and Spirituality Podcast, where we dive deep into universal spiritual principles and ground them in modern science. My name is Chris Carden.
And my name is Kevin Carden. And we are committed to simplifying the spiritual side of success for you with easy to understand scientific research so you could walk away with practical tools to create radical transformations in your life. Let's get started.
All right, welcome everyone to another episode of the Science and Spirituality Podcast. We have a special episode today because we actually have a guest. So I'm here with Kevin, who you guys know, and I'm also here with Paul Scancarelli, who's also known as Paul Vibes. He is a youth motivational speaker, and he's also a founder of a nonprofit here on Long Island called the Long Island Buddy Club. So Paul, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. I've been following you guys for quite some time now, and it's just a pleasure to be on your show. And I also look forward to having you guys on my podcast as well.
Yeah, no, we're really grateful for you being here too. And I know we've tried to put this together for a while. We've been, going back and forth with some phone calls, and, we really vibe on a lot of stuff and a lot of ideas. So it's really great that you're here and we're excited to talk to you. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of start off with the question of how you got into youth motivational speaking in the first place. And maybe if you can just tell a little bit about your story and, what excites you about what you're doing.
Yeah, good question. So there's a lot of big key moments that kind of led me to this point where I'm talking to you now, and to go as far back as possible where I think my journey really started. It actually started at birth. So basically at birth, I was born with some minor brain damage because I was basically choked by the umbilical cord. And I was told later on that my parents were told by their doctors that they didn't think I was going to make it. So I was in smaller classrooms growing up. I was in resource room. I was in tutoring every day, summer school. And like most young adults, who are affected by confidence issues and, self-doubt and all the normal type of things and bullying that goes on throughout school, that kind of hit me a little extra harder growing up with those challenges. And for me, there was a key point where my life shifted. I had a paradigm shift. I had this realization. And that moment was when I was involved in some volunteer work. And I remember it was about 10th grade, it probably was 2009 or 8. And I was sitting there with a veteran during this club that I was involved in. I was sitting there with the veteran, and I was just listening to him. We weren't playing any board games. We weren't doing anything fancy. I was just sitting there listening to him. And it was in that moment that I realized we as individuals, not just me, but we as individuals have the ability to make a huge impact on people's lives. And in that moment, I realized that no matter what learning challenge I have, no matter what our IQ score or how much money we have in the bank or our sexuality, none of that stuff truly matters when it comes to our ability to help other people. So after that moment, I slowly started getting more involved in volunteer work. I started taking care of myself. I noticed that I stopped getting bullies and actually became friends with the bullies and learned about the traumas and things that they went through. I started sitting with the kids that were sitting alone at the cafeteria. I started exercising and just taking better care of myself. And I kind of went through this transformation, and I went from, feeling sorry for my learning challenges and my difficulties to actually looking back and saying, listen, if it wasn't for those challenges, I wouldn't be able to do what I do now. And those challenges ultimately led me to create a non-for-profit for the special needs community. And that was back in 2011 when I started that group. And it was a very simple idea. It was just the goal of the group was to create fun social events for the special needs community to connect, socialize, and just make friends. And that started off with just 4 or 5 young adults that I went to high school with, to then expand it over the years to over 500 members altogether, and growing throughout Long Island. It went from Paul's Buddies to the Northport Buddies, and then the Long Island Buddy Club. And now I'm so lucky because we had the privilege and ability to team up with another organization, because as you guys know, it's not a competition. This stuff is not a competition. If we can, you two on this podcast is better than just one of you on the podcast. 3 of us together, we can make a bigger impact. So my philosophy was, well, if I could continue my education, I could continue spending time with my son and do my other things, but also make a bigger impact on the special needs community, how amazing would that be? So I found another organization. We kind of pulled our resources, and I'm still involved in the board of that group. But to answer your question about the speaking, I never even in a million years thought about being a motivational speaker. But what would happen was I would speak to SEPTAs, and SEPTAs are basically PTAs for the special needs community. And I would speak
Mhm.
at other kind of like club and high school related meetings about my organization. And then afterwards, I would have parents and young adults, some of which who had different challenges, learning challenges, and they would come up to me and say, "Hey, listen, my son or daughter, your story reminds me just of what my kid's going through." And then I'd also have kids that would come up and say, "Wow, your story I can really relate to, and it's amazing to see the accomplishments that you've been able to do." So I kind of looked at this as like, wow, it's something I enjoy. If it's something that I could do down the road and make money and actually, do full time, how awesome would that be? And yeah, and that's kind of been the journey I'm on right now. And I speak at schools about my story, but it's not just about sharing my story. It's about, I want young adults to look at their challenges in a different way, because not every student is going to be able to relate to my challenges or your challenges. It's going to really have them look internally about the challenges they've been through and what are the lessons, what are the things that they can learn from and walk away from, and not just make a impact on their own lives, but make an impact on the community. And that's kind of the
Mhm.
big thing that I could push for. And, that's kind of my mission, is to have them not just make an impact on themselves, but the people around them.
Yeah, I think that's the power of story as well. And I think even like throughout history, humans have really connected with stories.
Hmm.
Like, ever since like the beginning of when civilization started, like sitting around campfires and telling people about stories and all these, like, if you ever read any of like Joseph Campbell's work about like the hero archetypes, and there's these stories that are passed down throughout generations that kind of change a bit, but the overall arch, like the theme of it is that someone goes through a hardship, they get over that hardship, and then they give back after going through that hardship. And so it's just really awesome to hear what you were saying about, like, it's not just about you when you're doing these motivational speaking. It's like your story serves as a template for other people, even if they're not going through the same exact thing as you. They can still look up to you and say, hey, if he can get through something like that, then maybe I can get through whatever I'm going through right now. And I think that's kind of like the beauty of motivational speakers in general, and people who like provide those kind of examples for other people. It's not really, it is about their story in some respects, but it's also about the template that they're providing for other people, which is, really great. What were like some of the challenges in the very beginning of starting the non-for-profit? Because like I feel like there must have been, was there like some fear involved in like getting started with that kind of stuff, or like putting yourself out there in the community like that? And yeah.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's a big learning experience, and I would speak to, even when I was creating my non-for-profit, I would talk to people who had non-for-profits and involved in organizations for 20 years or more. Some of these people, and they're like, "Paul, listen, you're always going to be learning. You're never going to have everything figured out. It's an ongoing experience." And I do remember, I like to say this: there was like two different types of people when I was creating non-for-profit. There was the one type, "Wow, that's amazing. That's so great. Anything I can do, let me help you." And that typically were people who have experienced volunteer work, or for example, were parents of people within the organization who wanted me to continue to do that work that I was doing. And the other group of type people, I like to say, is a lot of them are, "Oh, that's so great, but what happens if this goes wrong? Are you going to make money, all this?"
Mhm.
And or anything that can go wrong, they were kind of almost in a way trying to convince me not to do it. And I thought was interesting was, one of the common things, not all the time, but one of the more common things I saw with those type of people is those people didn't really had that experience of what it was like to do the volunteer work. They didn't seem to have that, and I didn't know that they had that experience in their own lives of what it was like to give their time away to help other people. And that's nothing against them, but I just know that people who have known that experience, they understood what I was getting at it. Even though I wasn't getting paid, I was never planning on getting paid. They knew that I was going to be given so much in return by doing that type of work. And I truly am. I mean, like I said, I'm not the founder, and I'm not running the group by myself anymore. But the people that reach out to me and the thank yous I get years later, not that it's been years, but the people I've made an impact on these last few years of my life, those experiences and reminders, and the people that I've been lucky enough and privileged enough to make an impact on, um, you continue to see how appreciative those people are. So it's not something that once you do and it's done, it's something that really leaves a impact. But yeah, there was definitely a lot of challenges, but especially the challenges in high school that kind of led me to create it. Those were the very prominent challenges that I had to go through as an individual.
Yeah. How old are you when you started the non-for-profit?
So it didn't, I think it became an official non-for-profit. I think it was 2013. I'm pretty sure I got to look at the paperwork, but in 2011, after I graduated high school, is when I started planning events.
Okay. Wow. That's like so crazy. Cause I'm like just thinking about like the mental state that I was at in high school, and just like all the, like, I didn't have too many friends in high school, to be honest. Like I was on the baseball team, and like I was like, I got good grades and everything, but I was never like part of like a group. Like I honestly, Kev, I would always tell people that I feel like the reason why was because I would always have Kevin to come home to and like hang out with. Like we would play video games and stuff, and I'd always like have that person to, chill with. But I just can't imagine like myself like doing something that you did at that age, like starting a non-for-profit. It's like, it's just really awesome. And it's, I don't know, just shows a testament to like the mentality that you had there. And also just it's the reason why I asked you about the fear. It's because like, I feel like that's a big thing in a lot of people's life, is like that fear of doing something. And Kev, we talk about this a lot too. And you as a life coach, just people wanting to know all of the steps and all of like exactly how they're going to get to a specific place before they take any steps. And like, there's no way that you could have known when you started the non-for-profit that you would end up where you are today. But it's about taking it's about taking the next step that you can see over and over and over again. And then you string those steps together and it's like, oh crap. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
I never thought in a million years. Like I for me, it's funny you say that, because it really resonated with me what you just said. Because when I was creating the Buddy Club, my philosophy was, if I was going to move forward or not, creating a non-for-profit, I wanted to make sure I enjoy the whole journey. If at any point I felt stressed, I wasn't enjoying it, that took the fun out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't getting paid. I wasn't doing it for that. But the most important thing was I wanted to enjoy helping other people. I wanted to enjoy that process. So I said to myself, I want to enjoy the group now fully, even before it's a non-for-profit. And if I do decide to do that, I want to make sure that I enjoy that process. But I got to say that things worked out perfectly. Like I mentioned, these last year and a half, when I had to make that hard transition, things kind of unfolded perfectly, where my vision didn't just end. My story didn't just end with my organization. I was able to continue that. And that's important to me, is you want to continue those relationships that are made, those friendships, those connections, even if you kind of have to take a step down, because, a lot of work, a lot of friendships, a lot of energy and emotions and connections that are made. It's hard to kind of just stop something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you did stop it?
No, we didn't stop it. What I mean,
Okay.
there was a decision that had to be made. Like anything, we go through different chapters. I'm sure you guys had to make transition and changes in your life. Just as I made that transition to create the Buddy Club, as I was getting older, I had to make a decision, to go back to school for social work, something I really wanted to do, and also have time to start my own podcast, and also have time to give talks, which I've been doing since about November now.
Yeah.
I've been very lucky. And obviously all the talks I had booked, I had first time 2 paid gigs in 1 month. And as you know, with everything going on, I don't think they're going to have any auditorium of 300 kids. So that wasn't really going to work out.
Yeah.
But back to what you're saying. Yeah. So basically I teamed up with another organization where we basically continue to make an impact on the special needs community around Long Island. And that group is called Positive Behavioral Support Services.
Nice.
And we plan social events the same as I did with the Buddy Club, little changes here and there, but I sit on the board.
Yeah.
So,
awesome.
I'm just happy that I'm able to continue to, make that impact.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think just to circle back to what you were sharing, Chris, like, and you touched on this too, Paul, about like why, of course, you felt guided to start all this is because of what you experienced in your life. I think that's really important for people to remember, because it's, like Chris and our experience, like I was thinking his exact thoughts, like, man, like thinking back to my age when I would just graduated high school, like I was in no place to really start anything to like really make a massive impact. But it was because I didn't really have, such challenges in my life that I felt like I needed or wanted to reach out to others until, it was after college for me that like I had this massive change in my life. And I then, now looking back, it's like, man, like if I had help, when, and I did have help, making those changes to overcome those challenges, like, man, I want to help those people who are in that situation. But before that, like, I honestly couldn't care less. Like, and that's, I think it's something that we all need to reflect on, because even though we don't like, we in the moment we may not care, it's like there's still that humanness level. Like when you hear about something, like when I'm hearing about your story, Paul, it's like, damn, like I would help. Like, but like
Yeah.
it's like, sometimes we do have to even like jump on other people's visions first before we can really like, go forward with our own. So
Yeah, I think it's a big thing about taking your ego aside, because with
yes.
me, I remember if you would have told me years ago that I'd be teaming up with another organization, I'm human. So there are definitely points and times where I keep my ego in check. And if you would have told me years ago that I'd be teaming up with another organization, I'm like, no, I put so much work into this. Why would I just do that?
Mm,
But through my spiritual journey, you realize, I think we all could agree, the importance of letting things go. Not in the sense of just dropping it, but
yep.
letting this is mine or this is my group. Because for me, even though I'm not a founder of the organization anymore, we are able to make a bigger impact together rather than being
Mhm.
separate. So
Mhm.
that humbles me. And as I get older, and like I said, I have a son and other things, and overcoming my own, learning disability and different challenges, you really learn that you don't have all the answers. And I think one of the reasons why I've been able to do a lot of things that I do, thankfully, is because at a young age, I had to learn that it was okay to not know everything. So I had
Mm-hmm.
to learn to advocate for myself, which is one of the big things that I speak about in schools. Is I only have 3 parts of my main talk I give, and I'm always expanding the topics as a substance abuse counselor and other things. I talk on a variety of different subjects, but my main talk, I have 3 parts. The first one is overcoming challenges. I share my challenges, but more importantly, tools and mindsets for students to work through their challenges. The second part is the importance of seeking help and resources. So I want to empower
Yes.
young adults to know that it's okay to seek help for themselves or for friends that are going through stuff. And I kind of make them realize, listen, even your friends, your coaches, your mentors, your parents, they have coaches, they have parents at one point, they have people that support them.
Yes.
And then the third part I talk about is finding your passion. I go into different ways and mindsets and stories on finding your gift and your purpose.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, it's a journey. And for me, I look back and I say, I wouldn't be doing the things I'm doing now if it wasn't for those learning challenges. Because I
Mhm.
think, a lot of things I hear in students in schools is this one thing is like, I wish this didn't happen to me. Why me? And
Mm.
I'm sure you guys have experienced that why me question.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you guys feel about that, but
Well,
that's something that a lot of kids deal with.
I mean, I was just like, and throughout all of this, I'm just thinking of like our mentor Mary Morrissey. She has this line she says the content of your life is the curriculum of your evolution. So it's like what you go through in your life and the things that you experience end up being what brings you to your passion or what brings you to the thing that you're supposed to do. If you're aware enough to listen and if you're brave enough to overcome those challenges and actually accept that the things that are going on in your life, maybe they're here to teach you something rather than try to just um, uh, resist them all the time. So, and then that quote, it feels like I feel like it fits perfectly in with your story. Like everything that you went through, the content of your life ended up being the curriculum through which you evolved from.
Yeah.
And it led you to start the not-for-profit. It led you to have that courage and that passion to overcome that fear and to help other people who may have been going through similar things to you. And then it also led you to have the passion and overcome the fear to speak and put your message out there. And so and I think, Kev, you were kind of touching to that point too, where you said at the end of high school you would have never done that because the content of your life at that point, it wasn't leading you into doing what you were supposed to be doing yet.
Yep.
And so I feel like we all in points of our life will come to those crossroads of things that we go through. And we talk about this a lot on this podcast of awareness and perception of how you perceive things. And I feel like a lot of people in today's day and age, they have that why me mentality.
Yes.
And when you have that why me mentality, you fail to see how what you're going through can help you. And so I think that's what I would have to say about that. And I think that's, really important.
Yeah, it's something also to remember is like what you're just the piggybacking off what you just said is like, and maybe Paul, I'd love to hear your points on this of like what you share in your talks and what you teach on to overcome that victim mentality. But the number one thing I think of is like, well, where you put your attention is where you're going to see like more energy, like flowing to, and you're going to see more of. So if you're putting your attention on like, why me? you're going to start thinking of reasons why it's
You're
happening
going to get
to
the
you.
answers.
And
Yeah.
and then it's going to bog you down even more. Like, so why look at that? Like, why not look, okay, what could this teach me? Like, then going down that route, you're going to find what it can teach you. Like, you find what you look for.
Mm.
That's my perspective. But Paul, what's the way, what do you teach? It may be similar. I don't know, but yeah, I'd love to
No,
hear your point of
it's
view.
funny because actually what you're talking about reminds me of actually when I finally went through that transition myself. And I think I mentioned earlier, the bullies became my friend because it almost was like I was such in a place where their bullying and their insults and stuff wouldn't get to me because I was in a higher vibration, a higher state where I was taking care of myself. I was going deeper into my spirituality. And as you know, like a lot of people, they like to look for people that they feel like they can pick apart, right? That are weak. And what happened was when I stopped being weak and I became strong, I was talking to a lot of these bullies, and I got to realize the trauma and stuff that led them to doing what they do. And a lot of them, not to make excuses, but as you know, a lot of oftentimes it's the bully was once bullied themselves, and there's a lot of trauma that goes on in their lives and their childhood. So for me, I don't know if this answers your question, but when you get to that state, I feel like a lot of things change for you as an individual. So when I start talking about ways that young adults can improve their lives, or when I'm working with the special needs population, what you see happen is you see them working on one part of the puzzle, right? I think you guys agree, it's like a puzzle piece, right?
Yep.
Each part of our life is a puzzle, and it's about finding balance. And when I start working with just one piece, because you don't want to overwhelm anybody, even when giving a talk, and that's why my talk only has 3 simple parts, is when I even start working with the clients I work on one-on-one, separate from the buddy club, because I do direct support staff where I take them out to the community. What you see is when you start improving one puzzle piece, one part of their lives, they start improving other areas of their lives, and they try to create balance, right? It's like eating healthy. It's like you could just eat healthy, but you'd be even healthier if you eat healthy and you work out and you get your sleep. And even in my own life, I notice I'm so much more in balance when I'm looking at the whole picture. So I really try to have young adults realize that there's no one quick fix, right? There's no magic pill. There's no one answer for it. But I really try to have them kind of look at the life they're living and try to figure out where are the pieces that they can, improve.
Yeah. And I think I love what you said there about like improving one part of your life, and then that kind of snowballs into other parts. And it just goes into the idea that everything is connected, and not just, that we're all connected as a species and we're all connected on this planet and this universe has this one unifying energy, but the parts of your life are also connected too. I had a post on Instagram, I think it was like a month ago or so, and I was just saying how in Chinese medicine, we view the body as being an interconnected web. And so if one organ starts to suffer, the other organs will suffer as well, because there's all these interplay of relationships that go on within the body. And I tied that to how it's the same within all of our lives. Like if one part of your life starts to start going bad, let's say you don't like your job, that's going to eventually spill into your relationships. And then that's going to, those relationship problems are going to spill into how you eat and how you carry yourself. And conversely, if you start to improve your relationships, that's going to start to improve how you do your work. And if you change your job, that's going to improve your relationships. And there's this interconnectedness at play. And I feel like a lot of people who maybe are very down in the dumps and who are having a hard time in life, they feel like they need to fix everything at once. And sometimes it just takes that one habit change, like that one little thing that you could do. And that could kind of give you that spark to start changing your life in all these other areas, because everything is connected. So yeah, I also wanted to ask about the third part of your speech, like finding your passion. Like I kind of wanted to know what advice you give for young people, because that's also something that we talk about too on this podcast. And I know, Kev, you're a life coach, and that's really all you do is help people find their passion. So just wanted to get some of your ideas out there about what you tell people, especially at a younger age.
Yeah, so it's funny because the most recent talk I gave was at a special needs center, and it's super cool because, as you guys know, as speaker, or even when you do podcasts, things don't always go as planned. And even though you don't have a script in your mind, usually, things could take a total twist.
Mm-hmm.
And in this talk, in all my talks, especially when it's a smaller group, I'm always asking for feedback and people to kind of raise their hands and call out, and I want their involvement, and it challenges me to be witty and be in the moment and not be so stuck on kind of like a script. And I remember talking to them about, like you said, the final part of my talk, which is finding your passion. And I said, who here hates doing things they don't like? Who here just doesn't like it? Who doesn't like school? Who doesn't like this? And they're like, I hate this. And they all are so cute. They're calling out things they don't like, and they're calling out they're calling out different things that they don't enjoy. And I said, listen, let's change the way we view those things. I'm like, every time you're experiencing those things, whether it's something you do by choice or something that you have to get through, whether it's for a school or something like that, a part-time job, I say that's one more thing that you know that you don't want to do. I said, that's one more thing you guys can check off the box. I'm like, how exciting is that? And it was a cute moment. They're laughing and joking. And but really, if we look back, and to me, it's all about perspective. I feel like everything, even what we're going through as a collective right now with the virus, there are positive things to take out of it. So when I'm working with someone, whether it's one-on-one and when I'm giving a talk, and they're sitting there and they're complaining about this. I hate my job. I hate this. I said, well, how great is this? I say, now you know that this is not something that you want to do and follow through. So I'm always trying to change, have them change themselves, the way that they're viewing their life. Because as you know, a lot of people are not happy. A lot of people are not happy. And all it takes, I feel like, is just a little twist, a little tweak, a little change on how they're viewing their current life situation.
That's awesome. That actually goes very much in alignment with what I teach is, and what me and Chris have learned from our mentor, is starting with noticing your longings and discontents. But they're both flip side of the same coin. But what you're talking about is noticing your discontent and not trying to push it away or be mad about it, but just noticing, oh, all right. And I love that, this is what I don't like. And I love that, you put that spin on it, that you help them see it's something that they can actually celebrate, as checking it off. It's like, yes, all right, I know I don't like that.
And you see that a lot with relationships. You see that a lot. You see so many people, and I'm very lucky to look back at a lot of my, for example, ex-partners, and we have healthy relationships, and for a variety of different reasons. But what's interesting is you see a lot of people, even in relationships. I have so many people that aren't my friends with anymore, or exes and people I hate, boyfriends I hate, girlfriends I hate. And there's a lot of hate, and you see that a lot more times than not. And I'm like, oh my God, why do you hate this person?
Yeah.
And I try to say, so, whenever I talk to people who just came out of a big breakup, right? And there's always people, things happen. And I say, what is something positive you've learned from that experience? Positive. So stop bashing your partner for one moment and tell me and sometimes it takes a while. I hate them. They left so much damage. I said, but for your next partner, when you get to know someone, what are the qualities you like? Focus on the positive. Well, what are the things that maybe that person didn't have, but what are the qualities that you look for? And you could even do that in your job situation or a living situation. Okay, so what are the positive qualities? You may not have them now in your life, but what are the things that you want in your next job, your next partner, your next experience, your next adventure, So I'm always trying to have people and kind of switch the perspective on life and different things that they're going through.
Nice.
It's kind of like a good it's kind of a good perspective to have for just like life in general, because I feel like a lot of times people, when they come to life's all about making decisions. So I feel like a lot of people, they are paralyzed into making certain decisions because they're not sure whether or not the decision is going to be the right decision or the wrong decision. And honestly, the answer is you're never going to know until you actually make the decision, and then you adjust after you make the decision. It's like people just always want to have this control over the outcome. But it's like, if to go to your example about dating people, if you can get into a bunch of different relationships, and if you know that your perspective at the end of it is going to be, this is either going to work out or I'm going to learn something about myself and about what I want in a relationship, it's a win-win. Like, you can't lose when you go into the situation with that perspective. And you can go into any situation with that perspective. It's like, I don't know if this job's going to be right for me. Well, I don't know either. Like, the only way you're going to ever find out is if you do it. And then if you don't like it after a week, just quit. But you're never going to know if you made the right decision until you actually make the decision. I think there's like some quote by some famous dude, maybe like a leader of a country, where he's like, the best thing you can do in a moment of decision is the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing. And the worst thing you can do is nothing. So it's about like making decisions and adjusting after you make the decision. Yeah. So that was a really good piece of advice that you gave those. Awesome.
Yes. And I like that. And, there are a lot of people who have the opposite mindset, where it's any situation, and everything could be right. You could look, oh my God, you did an amazing job. And like, oh, this is terrible. That's terrible. I had a friend recently that gave her first ever TED Talk. It was a local TED Talk, and one that I'm applying to. It's in Deer Park in Long Island. You guys should definitely come check it out next year. But she gave her first ever TED Talk. It was a 15-minute talk on business. And the whole talk was really good. But there was one moment where she froze up, and there was a moment of silence. And But to me, that was the most impressive moment because the way that she came back from that.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her I was going to write a little review about the talk, and I made a little video. And she's like, I loved how that was your favorite part of the talk, because here I am beating myself up over it. I was ruminating on and obsessing about it. And I said, well, listen, as a speaker, I just love the way that you came back from that. You didn't make an awkward, you didn't stay there longer than you needed. You didn't apologize. You didn't walk off stage. You just went right back into it. And I think that's a good example of life. Like, we're going to have slip ups. We're going to have in hell. I mean, people up there on a stage, I mean, listen, they can make it, that's hard enough. People are more fearful of public speaking than they are of death.
Yeah.
So you can go up there and make, my whole philosophy is go make as many mistakes as you want.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent that to her. I was like, out of everything, how you rebound and you came back from that moment was the most impressive. So I feel like anything, even what you consider like a failure or a mistake in your life, whatever people are considering, that ultimately can be their biggest lesson. It's, a lot of spiritual teachers, I think we would agree, they talk about how it's through our suffering that we have the ability to be enlightened or conscious or whatever terminology we want to use. And for me, that from my own personal life, that is so true. For me, that has been my journey.
Mm. There's a great quote where it says, you can turn any failure from a stumbling block into a stepping stone.
Oh, I like that.
That's exactly it. Feel free to use that.
That's not another one too. Is like the cracks. The cracks are what let the light shine through. And
yeah,
as much as it stinks when we have cracks, things don't go our way or we go through challenges. That's what allows the kind of the life and the lessons and the experiences kind of shine through and aid us.
Yeah, but we got to choose it. That's the thing, is having that perspective. Because imagine if you didn't write that, record that review for your friend, she would have kept beating herself up about it and not really have known that. So it's a quality of like not only thinking that way ourselves, but then being willing to receive support, as you said, like the second point of all of your talks. I think is super important, because otherwise we just get stuck in our heads.
Oh yeah. And listen, I'm a victim of that too. I'm human. And what's funny is even my friend who's a performer, we all talk about how in his lyrics or even as a speaker, the things I'm talking about, I haven't mastered it. I am learning it's a reminder to myself, because I'm a human. I need to constantly be reminded about being present, about overcoming challenges, about, me. I have to realize deeply that it's okay for me to seek help. And, people that come up here and pretend that they have everything, they say, I know everything. And those are the people you got to run away from, because, nobody's got all the answers. Nobody's perfect. And, we're constantly learning and, growing.
Yeah. But I think that's like what makes people in, like, let's say a position that have influence like you when you're speaking, it makes them more relatable when they're up there and they're like, hey, like, I don't know everything, but here's my experience and here's how I think it can help you. And I think, Kev, that's one of the things that I respect about Mary so much, like our mentor, is because she'll be up on stage and she'll literally talk about times where she had a drop in awareness, and like she'll share them openly, and she'll be like, hey, like this happens to me too. And it's really nice to see like this woman up here who's been studying transformation for 45 years and is at like the top in her industry, and she makes mistakes all the time too. It really like it gives me like the freedom to make mistakes too and not beat myself up over those mistakes too. And Kev, like the point that you just made there is great. Like it is all about a perspective. Like that's all it is. It's having the awareness that this perspective exists, and then in the moment choosing to have that perspective. Like one of the things that I always like to say about awareness is that awareness breeds choice. If you're not aware of things, you can't make a choice between them. And I feel like a lot of people in today's day and age, they operate on autopilot and they operate through these heavily worn down patterns that they're not in that moment of awareness where they can decide to choose a different path. And again, Kev, we talk about this a lot in the podcast too, that it's not something you do once and you're done with. Like it's something you have to do consistently over and over and over again. It's like a constant battle. Yeah,
it's definitely a decision you need to make every day. It's exactly like you're saying. It's something that you need to constantly remind yourself about. And even to me, even some days I'm like, wow, I walk out of these talks feeling like I'm the one being motivated, because you hear these stories of these different people. And I make a joke, and I'm not really joking when I'm saying in these talks. I say, because like I told you, I gave a talk recently at a special needs center, and they're calling things out. They're fun. They're having a great time. And some of the stuff that they're calling out and sharing, some of the challenges they've overcome. I'm going through this. I'm going through that. I just went through this. I can relate to that. And I went up to the front row of tables. I said, listen, you should be up here speaking. I said, I can sit down and listen to you and be motivated by you. And they all start cracking up, and I go to kneel down to pretend that I'm sitting down. And that's what it's about. It's about being humble and realizing that just because you're in a position of coaching, a position of, even if you're speaking to a few people or you're running a non-for-profit, like, you are on the same playing field, the same level as everybody else. No matter how much money you make, no matter your degrees, no matter your viewership, no matter the clothes you wear. And, these are these thoughts that keep me humble and keep me realizing that I'm a student. My philosophy is I'm a student at everything, a master at nothing. And that allows me to kind of, like the saying, be open to the world, but attached to nothing. And I'm constantly learning. And I sometimes walk away from these talks, and some of them that I get paid, I walk out, I'm like, wow, like I should be paying them. Like,
Mhm.
that was amazing. Like the stories, they come up to you, and I'm sure you guys have had that in the coaching and the acupuncture that you do. You guys, it's like the people and the people and the experiences and the stories that you hear when you're doing this work, these different types of healing and teaching is surreal to me. I feel like it's sometimes so like a movie almost.
Mm. Mm.
That's a big thing about being open to like learning at any point in your life. I think there was something I heard recently about like how like parents and like like parents teach their kids a lot of things, but then also kids teach their parents a lot of things.
Yep.
And I think it's just like remaining teachable is kind of like, I think, a really big thing in today's day and age too. Cause I feel like a lot of people, this was me too, after finishing college the first time, I thought I was like, oh, I'm done learning. Like got my degree, like I'm a CPA, like let's just like work. And it's just, you forget that you're like, the life is all about learning. And the minute that you think that you know everything is the minute that you've lost, because then you close your mind open to new possibilities and new perspectives. So I think that's a great perspective to have, just like remaining teachable. Yeah.
And Bob Proctor says, when you think you've got it, you don't.
Yeah. So the final thing I actually wanted to talk about on the podcast, I want to talk a little bit about your show, Paul, because why you started your podcast and what it's about and what you hope to accomplish from it. And then, yeah, I just want to hear your thoughts on that, and just so we can kind of just show people that there's other podcasts out there doing similar stuff to me and Kevin, and spreading good messages and good vibes.
Yeah, well, first I gotta say you two would definitely fit right in, and as soon as we can get you on, whether it's through video or once this clears up, get you in person, I'd love to. But it's funny because this kind of started around the same time that I really started booking my talks. Back in November, I was like, how cool would it be to have the ability to promote myself as a speaker, but more importantly, showcase amazing people throughout Long Island. And I said to myself, okay, if I'm going to do a show and I'm going to run it through my house, I'm going to invest in this show, and it's not about money. I'm not getting paid for it. But if I can have a show, what are the themes and topics that I want to go over? And the themes right away came like spirituality, self-development, community, wellness, connection. And over the last couple months, I've had, and as you guys know, I've had people come on, share their stories of overcoming addiction and how maybe poetry and rap music has changed their life. We've had people with a variety of special needs, and some people that you've known who have come on the show. My buddy Evan, who's an amazing, Evan Ryder,
Yeah.
he came on, and he came on a few times, and we also did another video for him. But to have these different people come on the show to share the challenges that they've overcome is amazing, and it's inspiring. And we do have people that come on and share their businesses. We've had mediums on the show. We've had people, owners of yoga studios on. We've had people who are social workers on, reverends on. We've had different local spiritual leaders on the show. And just to hear the stories and the challenges and what led them to the kind of like what you guys do, what led people to the work that they do now has been a surreal experience. And I literally walk away, just like I do from this show here, as I walk away from these different guests, like I have like naturally high. I got like chills. I'm like elevated. I feel just like surreal because the talks that we have are so deep, so raw, and so powerful. I don't know if you guys can relate from the people you've had on. If you guys can maybe share with me, like, do you guys relate to that? Kind of like that feeling when you walk away from these guests, like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, we've had, Kev, how many, like 2 guests, 3?
Well,
Oh
Paul,
yeah,
I believe is the third.
I wasn't there when you did it with Lauren. the right. You did one without me.
Lauren? Oh, yeah, Rorin.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Sorry.
when you
Yeah.
said Warren, I thought it was like
Yeah,
thinking of a woman. I
no,
was like,
no, no.
no, no, no. Rolin.
Well,
Rolin. Yeah, his name.
yeah. I mean, no, but I resonate with the depth that you're talking about of people that you're speaking with, and even when we don't have guests on, like the reason one of the main reasons that I love doing this podcast is that there's only so much depth you can get to on an Instagram post or on a Facebook post or like through like a picture or through like a quote. But I feel like what people need nowadays or what people are craving nowadays is like that deeper conversation and that deeper connection that goes beyond just surface level. And I mean, really started to like latch onto that idea after listening to like a year's worth of Joe Rogan podcasts.
I can't
And
go wrong with Joe Rogan.
because what I noticed though is that when you're watching like the regular news, like they'll have panels of people that are on for like 5 minutes, and all they're trying to do is like get in like sound bites for like the nightly news
Or
or
insulting
whatever.
each other, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. And there's no real depth, there's no real conversation, there's no real dialogue happening. And so what I love about podcasts like this and podcasts like yours, Paul, are that you actually give people a chance to like show their entire like platform and discuss ideas and to kind of have that dialogue out in the open and out in public for other people to hear. Because then it's like when people are watching the podcast or listening, like a lot of people, they're like, wow, like people are actually having conversations about this kind of stuff. Like it's not just me like sitting here like on Instagram, like looking at all these cool quotes. Like there's actually other people out here who think like me. And it's just really great to see that kind of like long form conversation. And so, yeah, it's just like really great. And then that's what I love about doing this podcast. And also what I love about listening to your podcast, and also like the breadth of like differences of people you have on your podcast is so awesome. Like that guy who does the rapping, that was like so awesome how you just literally set him up in a studio and he was just like rapping about spirituality. It was like really cool.
yeah, when he references Eckhart Tolle, shout out to Black Alex. He's a cool guy. He's just to add, we're working on a project I want to share with you guys because it's pretty cool. As a speaker, I think we could agree that music is sort of the biggest way to connect people. So we're working on a song/music video that everybody involved can use it for different ways. But one way I would use this song and video eventually when it's made is to play it as an intro.
Nice.
Go up and have different actors and lyrics that kind of showcase an individual going over, going through a transformation.
Yeah, I think music is one of the things that could change your vibration instantly and your frequency level instantly. And there's like there's only like a pretty short list of things that can do that. And music is like on that list.
Yeah.
Which is why it's like if you look throughout history, it's like it's an integral part of every culture,
Music is one of the best tools for that. I agree. And thanks for bringing up my podcast because, I've been lately being invited on different podcasts like your show, and I really appreciate the opportunity because, the more people that get onto my show, then what's amazing is that the people that are on my show get more recognition that they deserve because there's some hidden talent, as you know, in this community all over the world that they may not have thousands of views and thousands of followers, but they have a message that should really be getting out there. And you talked about the news real quick. You mentioned the news and the stuff, and even some of the music and the messages and the leaders and the people the pop stars, and there's so many hidden talented people that are spreading a positive message, and we need to make it so that stuff sells rather than this stuff that's kind of degrading and numbing us. I think we would agree that we need more positive people in the forefront of society that are doing a positive thing.
No, for sure. So we usually like to keep these podcasts around an hour. And so I just wanted to just kind of open the floor for you, Paul. And if you wanted to say any like closing words or say anything else that you really want our listeners to know, and then also how people can find you as well. We're going to put your like Instagram and your Facebook and your show, like your YouTube in the show notes. But if you just kind of want to give like a message to people like before we close out.
Yeah, I'll give a little closing message and then I'll share where people could find me. I just want to first thank you guys again for having me on. And I just want to say anybody watching this, whether they are personally going through challenges or know someone that is going through challenges, to make sure that person doesn't feel judged or, make sure that those people know that there are people out there that want to support them, want to, help them and love them. And that the world really does, like you guys are saying, the world really does want you to succeed and to thrive. And there's often, these challenges that we go through as individuals, as a collective right now with the whole coronavirus thing going on, there is a silver lining. There are lessons and ways that we can come out of this stronger. So I just ask people again that are going through different challenges, don't be afraid to reach out for help. I know you guys, you two are more than welcome. I know to reach out to people who are going through different things. And then I ask if people want to learn more about my podcast and what I do as a speaker, they can find me at paulvibes.com. They can find me on Instagram and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, and they'll just find videos from my podcast and different talks and different things that I do throughout the community. I've been doing a lot of vlogs. I think you guys have seen with some of my special needs friends and stuff. And I'm all about just spreading positive vibes. And the logo people can find online is a little peace sign. You guys have seen it.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But just to end, guys, thank you so much for having me. And I really love and believe in what you guys do, and look forward to having you guys on my show.
Awesome. Cool. Well,
Looking
Paul,
forward
thanks
to
for taking the time out. We really appreciate it. And like I said, we'll put all of your information in the show notes, and so people can find you. All right.
Perfect.
Cool.
Thanks.
All right. Take care, guys. Welcome to the Science and Spirituality Podcast, where we dive deep into universal spiritual principles and ground them in modern science. My name is Chris Carton.
And my name is Kevin Carton. And we are committed to simplifying the spiritual side of success for you with easy to understand scientific research so you could walk away with practical tools to create radical transformations in your life. Let's get started.